So I'm just going to continue to work on the file editor. I'm moving the code edit code to the symbol crafter and text visualizer classes. And I'm trying to, last part that I stopped, I was trying to resolve the conflicts. So I started by two functions. I can't remember the first one, but I think the one that the first one was also, both of them were related to inputs. But the first one was a function that they made it virtual on the file editor, and then they overrides on the code edit, on the file edit, and then they override on the code edit. And it's a function that I changed the name on the, I think it was on the symbol crafter, so I just had to copy the code and then resolve the functions that I still didn't have because they are specific to the code edit. Then the second function that I'm trying to convert is the GUI input. And there are some errors now because like there's a bunch of dependencies. And the reason why I started with these two functions is because they are the ones that are very confusing to split between the two different classes. Because there's some part of the logic that is related to symbol crafter and some part of the logic related to text visualizer. So I copy it to text visualizer first, which is where the inputs are currently at, the GUI input function. And then I moved some parts to symbol crafter, and then there's a bunch of different functions that I didn't have because they are specific to code edit, and I translated a bunch of them. But when I compile, I'm getting the errors because there's a lot of them that one of them uses the team cache, and I defined on the symbol crafter, but the team cache is on the text visualizer, and the other ones I still don't have the functions yet. So I'm just gonna compile, see the warnings, and then try to solve them one by one. And I think that I'm just gonna try to. I also made a list of all the functions, and I'm gonna try to convert everything first and put everything that one class calls from the other to make a call based on the pointers. So basically try to make it work as fast as possible, and then after that, think about. That's what I'm going to try to do. But the part that is confusing now is about the code completion. Because code completion, I think, is similar to probably selection from the text edit, which is a functionality that makes more sense to put on the symbol crafter, but there's some parts that also make sense to put on text visualizer. So because I don't understand very well how it works, I'm not really sure what to do about it. And it's basically like, this is one of the functions that is kind of giving me a problem because this variable here, I think this variable here I put on symbol crafter should make the other functions work about that are related to code completion, but then this one updates these variables. So probably have to, I think I'm just gonna do, as I said, create setters and getters first. Create setters and getters make the thing work, and then after that, so once I have everything, I think about whether or not it's worth it to refactor or to change. So this one, I'm just gonna copy, comment it out. I think it's a texture today. No, fonts should be fonts. I think that's how I was doing on the other one, but I don't remember. So the first is the name, then the type. Use file edit. So they define or they set these variables on this thing here, on this file for the default theme. And when you use that function, you're basically getting from this file. So I've just see if I put space. There's a comment somewhere. If I put font, it's gonna be annoying to figure out, I think. So there's two places where they put the code edits and the so stacks edits. So probably I put the wrong name. So it's basically a reflection of this thing here. So this is the default theme, and it's gonna set this on ThemeDB, I think. So it's basically setting the values. So when you wanna get the values from this thing, you get it from here. But obviously, like doing like this, oh, I put file edits, is stacks edits. Basically, doing like this is not very good because I think that this one only gets from the default theme, and the theme cache is it allows you to get the one that like if you override the theme, there's another function I think that allows you to set a different value on the hash map that the theme class, either the theme class or the control class are going to keep track of. And when you use theme cache, you're basically doing that, which the code edit does. So whenever a class has the theme cache value or variable, it should override, it should allow it is basically saying like the class is going to use these values to determine how the drawing is going to be done. So like it's going to use the values as variables. And I think that it uses the theme cache to allow the option for you to override the values if you want. And I don't remember really well, but I think it's something to do with overrides, the name. I think set override something. And then it basically searches for, I think it's probably this. It searches for a hash map, but I don't remember which one it is. So when you do that, then, and you are using the theme cache to get the values, it's going to get the value that you set with the override, not from the default theme. But if I get from here, if I use this function, it's going to get from the default theme. So it's not the best way to do this. And this is the thing that is very, not very annoying, but kind of annoying, because the reason why I put this function here is because there's a lot of functions that I put on this class because they make more sense on this class, like this cancel code completion and stuff like that. I think I'm gonna ask ChatGPT as well. Yeah, this caret line, caret column they do make more sense on this class here. And obviously I could put on the other one, and then call from using symbol crafter pointer from text visualizer. So I can define this function on the other one and then use symbol crafter to call these functions here using the pointer that the other class has of this class. But I think that's probably not very good because most of the functions here, I think that they do make more sense on symbol crafter class. So because of that reason, it makes more sense to put the function here, I think, but the function relies on these theme values, which make more sense on the other one. And those are the places where it's going to be kind of annoying to figure out what to do. And the strategy I had on the text edits, which I still not sure if is the best or not, but I just translated everything, and then after that, I got the functions that I thought that I could make a variable. Like I basically duplicated the state on the two different classes, and then I synchronized the state from the symbol crafter. So I basically copy the variable on text visualizer, so I don't have to choose functions that get the values or set the values all the time, and I can use the variable directly on the text visualizer, and then I update those values from symbol crafter whenever the value changes. But I'm not really sure if that's the best way. And then here I don't understand how these functions work very well. So we're gonna have to spend. That's the thing. I think I'm not gonna spend time. Just gonna try to make it work as fast as possible, and then maybe later think about whether or not to change. Because this stuff related to code completion, I might have to change everything actually. And maybe it would be a good idea to spend some time now trying to understand this. Uh, no. I think I'm probably gonna spend some time because of this thing that I just said about the thing. Like it's not gonna be correct the way. But the thing is like I'm gonna have to spend time on this anyway because I think I'm gonna have to change this. Because this is obviously based on the names there is logic related to completing the code. So I assume that this is the stuff that is gonna give you the options when you write of potential things you can do. And I think because I gonna change basically stuff related to these kinds of things because of the parsing and stuff like that, it's very likely that I'm gonna have to change this. Already copied here. Do you wanna do this? The font size you can get also with the value. I have to save. I'm gonna put this on the beginning of the function just so I don't have to think about this. And then I just use the same variable on both of them. I should have done with this as well, but whatever. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna have to use this one. I remember the reason why I opened that file in the first place is because it wasn't working. It wasn't showing the fonts because I was getting the themes from the text edit, but I'm using the theme cache on text visualizer, obviously, and text visualizer didn't have the values. So I basically copied the code edit values and the text edit values, and then I just added to text visualizer class. I'm gonna have to see if they have this value. Code completion max width. It's gonna be this one. Let's copy here first. Actually, for this one, the other ones I'm gonna remember. Like if I see the codes, Yeah, maybe actually I have to go back, and it's better to keep a cache of the original code here so that like comment out one line with the previous code, because later I think I'm gonna have to go back to this and see if I can break down the logic. Like, it gets easier the more times you do it. Like a lot of these functions here, I on the beginning when I was translated the text edits, I didn't understand. But now, like, I'm more familiar with the class. I kind of know, I understand what they are supposed to do. I still don't understand all the nuances of every function. But for example, the get caret column and get caret line, they're just gonna get caret position, and then they store the values of the struct, and this one gets the text of the line, for example. So it becomes easier to understand how the class is supposed to work because you start to get familiar with the functions. And I think that the same thing is going to happen here. So I probably the best strategy is to get to the point where I have the class working, then I put breakpoints on the inputs, and then I go over a bunch of times and try to understand how, like, what is the purpose of the function and how it fits with the design of the class. Then once I figure that out, I can see if it makes sense to break down the function into two different parts and then leave one part on this class and put the other part on the other class. I think what I should try to do is get like a unidirectional data flow, like I said before, where I think it makes sense to put everything on the symbol crafter class that is related to completion because it's basically related to getting the information from the text, the way that I'm thinking about it. And probably I'm gonna have to change because of the parsing stuff. So I think that is obviously gonna be directly related to if it is the stuff that I'm thinking about, which is basically the options that show after you press after you put a dot or something. If are the suggestions, if this code is related to the suggestions, then I think I'm probably gonna have to change because it's gonna be related to the parsing mechanism. And but then there's obviously the visual aspect, which I think that is like this part here related to that, which is creating the menu. But I'm not 100% sure if these functions are related to the menu because I didn't see anything that has a menu, so it's probably not. I saw menu logic on the text edit, and there is a function here that uses a menu, which is the function that I think that creates the pop-up of suggestions probably. But these functions, I think that if they are related to menus, they're implicitly related. So, but I do think like just based on the name, that is a rectangle. I think that it does make sense that the class has functions that are going to be related to how the suggestions show on the screen. So I think that logic should be on this class, but the logic to make sense of the text and display suggestions should be on the other one. So I think the way that it should work is that the functions here depends on the flow of data that the symbol crafter is going to get by parsing the text. But I think I'm gonna go back to the previous version so I can keep like a line for each thing that I change. This one I had, so I think it was only on the other one that I didn't do. I think there's one more. Maybe it puts one more on the other one as well. This is correct. Let's try again. There's some weird errors because of the. It might be because of a value or something. I think they are related probably. The one is about the min and max functions. So this is the font. It should be this size. Oh, it's getting constants, I think. There are different kinds of functions to get different values. You can use the. I'm gonna use this one because it's probably better. This should be constant probably. Oh, also maybe it should be on. Yeah, it should be on text. Should get from text visualizer instead. I made this list here, so the ones in green are the ones that are moved already. So after I finish resolving the errors there, I'm going to go back to the. I might do this off stream, because I need to go one by one again to, and I'm basically doing like this so it's faster. So like I'm not putting not making a green here right after every time that I put a new function. I'm just converting the functions that I think that are most complicated first, then putting every function that this other function is going to use. Then after I do this, I'm going to go back to the classes and look for the declarations of each one, and then see, after I make a compile, see what functions are not marked as green here. So I'm going to go one by one again. I think once I resolve this input function and the draw function, I'm going to go based on this list here instead. Because the other ones, I think that is less likely that there are going to be conflicts. And if there are, they're going to be easier to resolve. The annoying ones to translate are the draw, notification draw, and the inputs, which are the most confusing usually. Yeah, so just gonna put there. Integer. Const object Must be initialized. Oh, it's because of the space. Cache for the color region. I'm gonna show there what I did as well. Is it like I'm doing this in the simplest way I can think about. Like the thing that was kind of annoying is that on the original GUI input function from the code edit, because of the way that they designed the classes, the code edit is gonna inherit from text edit, and then on some parts they call the GUI input from text edit. So like this, for example, this is what they do. So they call the original one, the first one from this class here. But obviously, based on the way that I'm creating, they're gonna be on the same class. So I couldn't do this. So what I did is just create another function, and then in the places where it was calling here, I just did what I was doing on the original one, just call the old GUI input, the text GUI input, and call the symbol crafter handle inputs function. And then I went over this and I translated some parts I put on the symbol crafter and some parts I put on I left on the text visualizer. And I think I also created another function on the symbol crafter to make it easier to move everything. So I'm just calling the function before on the beginning on symbol crafter, and then the rest of the inputs are the same. I think I deleted as well some parts that were the same, the logic. But obviously I'm not sure if it's gonna be exactly the same, and I don't care that much as well because as I use the class, I'm gonna have to change things anyway. So I think it's just better to move everything first. And then once I start using the class and I have to build the other logic for the other stuff, I'm gonna be forced to look into these things as well. And I think when I look into these things, it's gonna be easier to learn. I'm gonna have to change them anyway as well. And this is basically the function that I'm trying to resolve the conflicts here now. So here, basically, this function is the one that I'm calling from the other class. So first, I resolve the inputs on the text visualizer, then I call this function using the pointer that text visualizer has from this class to call this function, and then I created this other function here that I'm calling first. Maybe I should call this at the end there, I'm not 100% sure. Because I think that the order is gonna be, it calls everything from the, actually on the original one, it calls only from the, yeah, so in this case I think that it is correct. So because the original design is inheritance and they override the function, it's just gonna call the function from code edit. It's not gonna call the other one. And then it calls the other one from the code edit logic using that text edit way to call. Let's longer. So like on the code edit node is only gonna call this function here, and then it calls the old one from the other class using this. So it depends on the logic of this one. So I think here it does make sense to put the call to this function first and leave the old stuff after. Because this is the thing that is kind of hard to know. Since I'm splitting the classes, is obviously different. But there isn't any easy and obvious way to... Actually, the way that I'm doing it is kind of like I think it is correct because instead of calling the old one, I'm just calling the... I moved the functionality. So before I was calling both functions outside of the first one, but then I created this other function. So here I was doing like this before, where I was calling this function here to handle the inputs on this class, and then calling using the pointer on this. But then I'm basically moving the logic, this calls here, on the places that this one was gonna do that on this original class here. So in the places where this would call this function here, I just moved, which now I'm calling this and calling this. So because I'm doing this, I think that's, but maybe it's not the same actually. I think it is not the same because actually it is the same because the logic that I have on here is from the old one. So it would call this anyway on the original one. So I think that it is the same. So I call first, make sure that the logic of the code edit runs first. Then I do the, yeah, but it might be different actually because like the control flow is different. But there isn't an easy, obvious way to make it the same, I think. Because you can't put, like, you can't translate the boundaries. But I think it doesn't matter that much. Like I said, I'm gonna have to change anyway if it doesn't work. Even if it does work, I might have to change some stuff to make it work for the new approach that I'm trying to do. I think that translating this way for now is easier. I'm just gonna compile. So this, oh, the other function that is kind of annoying is the notification draw. And for the notification draw, I think I'm gonna do the same thing. So that's the difference between the input and the notification. When you inherit, the notification is still gonna call the old one. So it calls based on the class hierarchy. So it's gonna call the old notification draw, which comes from text edit first. Then it's gonna call the notification draw from this class. So it calls twice. The input it replaces on the derived class because it's a virtual function. But notification draw they define on the macro and is a recursive call that goes through the entire class hierarchy calling the function. So it's gonna call on all of them. It adds up from the class hierarchy. So I think that the way that I'm gonna merge is gonna be just by creating another function on the text visualizer, and I think I'm gonna do the same thing for the old one, like text edit draw, create a function like that, and then code edit draw, and then just make the call for both of them on the notification draw. But I'm gonna have to change things as well. So like here to resolve, the reason why I was thinking about this now is because I thought about moving this function to the other class because these variables here are all related to stuff that I'm doing on the other class. But this one here, it is called inside of the notification draw, if I remember. It's here. So it calls here. So for that reason, I think it probably makes more sense to leave this variable here. Obviously, I don't know for sure because there's a bunch of stuff here that I didn't spend time looking into. But I think that just because it calls here, it might be better to leave it there. But then the issue is I'm gonna have to create setters and getters. I think that's what I'm gonna do now. Just have to create setters and getters for these ones because these ones are here. And the thing is that on the original one, they don't have setters and getters for this. So I'm not sure if that's the best way to. I think I'm not gonna put, so I have to put a check here for uh, seeing if the pointer exists, but I think just gonna leave it like this. And I'm probably gonna change this later. I need to get to the point where I make this work, and then I go over. Thing is, I'm not sure if it's worth it to spend a bunch of time now. Like, things, it might be better to just make this class work, then finish the whole file editor later. Or finish the whole file editor, make this class work, finish the whole file editor to create the whole components, then finish the other classes, the other components on the scene. And once I have the scene, I connect everything. Then once I connect everything, I think about I probably gonna create Scalidrock charts to create a connection between this class and the visualization. Then I can think about the design and how to change this class. So probably gonna have to create a like feedback loop system. That's because of the cache. I'm just gonna compile again, show. See if it's gonna solve some of the errors, make it cleaner to see the other ones. I think it's probably better to even before, like I just make it work now with this, and then I work on the other one because it's better to have the whole component to test these things, because then I'm gonna be able to see, I'm gonna be able to compare with the GDScript one. Like the problem is that I have to merge other classes as well. So the script editor class and the script text editor and the I think it's code text editor as well. So there are several different layers to merge. This is gonna be annoying to do when I have to do stars and gutters for all of them. I think I'm gonna stop streaming soon. Just gonna do this stars and gutters off stream. As an icon. Oh, this one actually you should have. You should get from here. So I should put this stuff here. Just gonna copy all of them now. I was gonna do it one by one to see, but I think I'm just gonna do all of them. Then I remove the ones that are common. And size. So I'm gonna stop streaming now. I'm gonna resolve this errors here. I'm gonna have to create stars and getters probably to resolve the other ones. And I'm just gonna keep doing this. So after I make it work with this, I'm gonna go over function by function the declarations here. Then I'm gonna highlight here. Then for the ones, the next one after that's gonna be the notification draw, which is just gonna create another function on text visualizer, and just copy everything from this one. But basically this stuff here. And I'm probably gonna put the old one as well on a different function so that it's easier to see which one came from which class. And I'm gonna try to make it work as fast as possible. So once I make it work, I think I'm just gonna the next thing what I was doing before I did this was working on the actual class that I'm gonna use. So like this is the class that I'm gonna actually use on the because I'm basically going from like the initial design is very similar. I'm trying to basically do the same way that they did there because obviously it's much better to reuse everything that they already did. But for the stuff that I'm trying to do, I think that is better to create another design because it's gonna be more scalable. So if I thought that I could do everything with the class that I already have, that they already have, then obviously I would just copy and change the name so I can subscribe them on class DB. But because I think I'm gonna have to use other functionality and create other stuff, I'm initially just trying to create a similar design, but I'm gonna have to merge a bunch of classes. And then these ones, the reason why I was changing is because of this scalability thing, and I'm probably gonna have to change this a lot later. And this class here is basically like the same version of the code edit, which is the class that I was using here. And this class here would be like the equivalent of the script text editor, I think, or I did the design here. So it's basically this design that I'm kind of trying to follow. I'm gonna have to change this as well, actually. So this class is the one that I'm changing now, and I'm gonna follow the. So this one is gonna become. So I think I'm gonna put here. It's gonna become a different thing. It's gonna be. So this is gonna be actually. I'm gonna do it here for now. So I leave the other one there. I was gonna do that language thing. I might do that as well. So on the other IDEs, they use language server, I think, which is a paradigm like that creates a process of communication between the compilers, which translate or parse the language, and the visualization, which is the IDE. So it's like a message system between them. But I think I'm gonna probably try to do something different in the beginning, but maybe I'll end up doing that. Try to doing that anyway. The language is language parsing server or something like that, the name. But now I'm gonna translate this class here into the symbol crafter, which is gonna be the main thing. Then this is gonna communicate with the text visualizer, which is the rendering of this. And this is gonna have, which I'm gonna create later, the parser engine class, which I think that I'm gonna create as well. This one I'm not really sure if I'm gonna do it, but probably I'm gonna do it as well because it's easier. So the way that I'm thinking about doing is that the parser engine is gonna have the logic to parse the text into abstract syntax tree and get the like information, create control flow graphs and stuff like that. I might create other classes as well to do like different kinds of things with the text. But it's basically gonna be like on this. If I do other classes, I might actually connect them to symbol crafter, but I'm probably gonna put them on the parser engine if I want more functionality. So like this is like the entry point for the logic of extracting meaning out of the text. Then this one would be, I think that it does make sense to create a class for the tokens because it's gonna be easier to like encapsulate that for the visualization, I think. So the idea that I have is that this is gonna, so the way that I think that it works, the way that it works on the first one is obviously only one class. But the way that I'm doing there on the first split, which is basically the same as the original one, just splitting into two different classes, is that every time you type the inputs, it goes through the text visualizer first, and then symbol crafter is going to parse the inputs, and it's going to use the text class that they have as a model. So the text model class, on the original one is there's text, but I changed to text model, is the class that has the state of the text. So it puts that on a vector of line, which line is a struct that they created to track the data of the text, of each line of the text. So that's how they store the text on the file. And they use the text paragraph class inside of the class as well to keep track of the state, because it makes it easier for the line wrapping logic, which I'm not really sure if I'm gonna use or not, but I think I'm just gonna leave it there because it's easier. So the flow is from text visualizer, and I think it might be different actually. Like I think I'm gonna do it in the situation, which I think is probably gonna be very likely as well, which I think is the same way that the IDEs operate, is when you have a file, you first read the file. So in Godot's case, I'm gonna use file access to read the file, which is the class that they have to manage files. So you use file access, read the file, and then we have a function that's so this comes from other class. which is probably going to be file system presenter. So file system presenter opens the file or sends the signal with the file path to symbol crafter. Then symbol crafter uses the path to get all the text of the file and update the state on the text model. And after it does that, it sends the text to the parser engine, probably. Then the parser engine parses the text, creates the tokens. Then symbol crafter gets the tokens and sends the information back to the text visualizer to render everything. And this is one of the main flows, and the other flow is going to be from the inputs. So if you have an empty file, or if you have a file with text already, the interface is going to be the text visualizer, which is the input. Then from the input, it goes to symbol crafter. Symbol crafter updates the text model and communicates with the parser engine to change the structure that the parser engine is going to have to make sense of the text and the metadata. And the way that they had before, it was like basically the similar logic to this, but they were using this. They are using this on the GDScript class. So on the script editor class, which is the main class responsible for managing the state of the GDScript GUI, they're going to have as a variable this script text editor, which is the class that manages the text. It's basically the class that manages the overall state of the text inputs on the GDScript. The script editor is the class that manages the whole overall GUI, and the script text editor is the class that manages the state, I think, of the text. Then this class has a member variable, which is this code text editor, which is the equivalent of what I'm trying to do with code editor here. And then this one uses this other class, which is the code edit. So this code editor here that I'm creating is basically the one-on-one equivalent of this code text editor, which is the class that's going to manage the text inputs of the thing. And this one uses this code edit, which is the class that manages the state of the text. So this code edit is the class that I'm splitting, which is these different classes. And I'm going to replace, after I'm done translating code edit into these two classes here, I'm going to use the symbol crafter is going to be the main one that gets implemented on the sync tree. So I'm going to put this one on here instead of code edit. Then I'm going to finish this one, which this one I stopped when I was implementing the find and replace bar, which is basically the component on GDScript is going to be on the bottom, but it does basically what this does as well. So there's a element to search and there's another element to replace. On that point, I might have to change the class again because those things are going to interact with the code edit class because obviously it's related to the text. So for that reason, I think that it might be better to, once I finish implementing or translating code edits to these classes here, to replace the code edit with symbol crafter here, and then continue to finish this class to see if I have to change something on the other one. Then only once I finish this one, I'm gonna go back to the file editor, which is the equivalent, would be the equivalent of, in my case, it's going to be script editor. So that's the thing. I'm going to have to merge again as well. So I'm going to have to merge their version of script editor with this script text editor. But I think I'm just going to try to do it like this here, where I'm using this file editor tab container. It's another class I'm going to have that manages the tabs of each component. And the code editor manages the whole state of the text. So I think I'm going to try to do it like this. So once I finish this code editor, go back to symbol crafter to see if there's anything that I have to change. Then I'm going to go back to the file editor, actually create this class here, which is going to be from the, merging the functionality of the editor sync tabs with tab container. Then once I have this class, I can put this class on file editor. And then this one is going to be the one that is actually on the tree. And this is going to use symbol crafter. But I think I'm going to register all of them on class DB on the module. But I think only after I have this file editor, like the beginning template, yeah, I think at that point I'm going to Probably try to finish the other classes first. But maybe I'll think about the signals as well. Like have a initial structure of how it's gonna interact with the other classes as well. But then I'm probably gonna go back once I have the whole thing to think about how the text parsing is gonna relate to visualization. Yeah, so I'm just gonna continue to do this stuff off stream. So see you